Hello, I'm Hazel Irvin and welcome for the very first time to the Air Show. Over the next 6 weeks, we'll be flying to the very ends of the earth to bring you the most exciting stories from the world of aviation.
And I'm airborne, somewhere over brightest Africa, on my way to find out about the very different life of a bush pilot.
And I'm on the McDonnell Douglas C-17 Globemaster. Later in the series, I'll be taking an up-close look at this amazing aircraft, and with a bit of luck, I'll be getting my hands on a helicopter.
At the other end of the aviation market is the private pilot, and for the air show, that's me. By the end of the series, it's my aim to fly solo.
So, something we hope for everyone, whether you're a frequent flyer or whether you've still to take the plunge. But how else would you start a new series than with an exclusive? It's taken 20 years to develop and a succession of contractors to build, but the Air Show can now offer you a first glimpse inside one of the most powerful naval weapons systems in the world.
I have got my hands on a helicopter rather earlier than anticipated, and it's a great thrill because it's the Royal Navy's brand new Merlin, the anti-submarine variant of Western Helicopter's EH-101. And I say it's a great thrill because it's the first time that television has ever been allowed into the cockpit to fly in one of these, and the Royal Navy really believe that they've got a world beater here. Other navies are going to be extremely envious. Colin, this really is the most exciting helicopter, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Julian. We're very proud of it indeed. This is the first proper production aircraft, RN02. We've had a fairly long and involved development program involving 9 aircraft, but this is the first fighting aeroplane that the Navy is going to get of this mighty Merlin.
Lockheed Martin, the prime contractor for the 44 naval aircraft, provide the commercial backing for what is a huge financial commitment.
It is truly world class. I know we throw the term world class around a lot, but this really is the best in the world.
Why is it so good?
It's a huge improvement on anything that the Navy's ever had before. We've got 3 engines, 3 hydraulic systems, 3 alternators, but most important of all, it's an enormous quantum leap in the weapon system, in the way that the fighting information is presented to the crew and the way they can detect, locate and kill submarines.
It's been designed specifically to operate off the stern of a Type 23 frigate, and it can do so in extreme weather conditions.
As you can imagine, throwing it on the back of a frigate in the North Atlantic is not an easy task. It's got a very strong undercarriage. It's got a harpoon to help you stay on the deck once you are there. But quite deliberately, we've designed in a great deal of control power, twice as much as the previous generations of helicopters that we've got before.
What is special about the Merlin is that it can do everything that an anti-submarine helicopter can do and an anti-surface helicopter can do combined in one. Plus, it's large enough that it can be used for utility versions. So you have, in essence, 3 helicopters combined into one.
The utility version, which initially we're making for the Air Force, I'm sure will be a worldwide bestseller. A lot of countries have got a requirement for a great airborne modern 310 truck. And of course the passenger version, which is aimed fairly and squarely at the North Sea, where it was hoping to replace some of the aircraft which have now been on service up there for quite a long time. This is the next generation after those. Do you want to take it back?
If I may. This is comfortably the biggest helicopter that I've ever flown. very comfortable, isn't it?
I'm glad to hear you say so, because I'm always very interested in sort of experienced pilots' exposure to the aircraft for the first time.
I think this is what flying is all about, and it's a very rare privilege to be in a brand new, highly sophisticated and complex helicopter that will put the Royal Navy right at the forefront of technology.
You and I stand more chance of seeing the inside of a Jumbo's cockpit than that of a Merlin. 747s may have shrunk the world, but they do come with a health warning: jet lag. We all suffer from it, especially those who fly for a living.
Crossing time zones just builds up an accumulation of tiredness, and the hazards with flying are that you've got to try and make sure that you're well rested, especially to accomplish a flight of this sort of length, which is 10 hours.
If you're used to sleeping 6 or 7 hours a night, but you're only managing to get 2 or 3 or 4, then over a period of time you will get a chronic sleep loss, and you will begin to feel either tired, confused, not sure where you are. That is a common symptom we see in pilots, who they're not sure exactly where they are in time and space, and that can be very dangerous, of course. Cat napping, it's called, or short-term sleep, can make the pilots feel better, but in the long term it does cause a problem.
That sounds quite frightening, catnapping, because everyone would imagine the pilots just closing their eyes and who's flying the aeroplane, question mark. Generally speaking, flights of 8 hours or more are required by law to have an extra pilot. And John is my second officer today, John Padden. My first officer is Jim, who's just now gone back into the bunk area, and he's going to have 2.5 hours off, and hopefully he'll be horizontal, tucked up with a nice pillow, and he'll be able to get hopefully at least 2 hours sleep. The critical phases of flight for us are the takeoff and the landing. Probably more so the landing, because it's at the end of the flight when you are generally tired, and if you've been able to get 2 or 3 hours sleep, all the better.
I recently had to ground someone for nearly 2.5, 3 months, and with a little help to get him to sleep, got him back in a normal sleeping pattern, and within that period of time he was feeling fine again. In fact, a totally different sort of person.
They say flying west is best. That's because when you go east, the day gets shorter and fatigue can be even more acute.
Describe the feeling to me. What's the worst part of it?
Waking up the next day and feeling like somebody's beating you around the head with a baseball bat, or alternatively, you sort of wander around like your head's full of cotton wool.
Flight attendants have quite serious fatigue problems because they tend to work slightly longer hours, more hours, and not have quite the same rest periods as the pilots. They are pushing trolleys about at 7,000 feet, so you're really pushing a trolley up and down a mountain for hours on end.
You get used to it. You get used to learning to live with the feeling slightly wrecked, actually. On the way back from Tokyo, normally you haven't slept the night before, so you may be doing a 12-hour flight on 2 hours sleep, but the fact that you're constantly busy means that you don't have the time to think about it. So I think it's easier for us working it, as opposed to having to sit in a seat for 12 hours.
So if you have to sit on a plane for hour upon hour, what can you do to fight that fatigue?
Drink lots of water, be nice to the crew.
We don't drink alcohol on board. That's the main secret.
So good! So good! I got you!
Try and sleep.
I'm hot and I'm
flight, you know. Light meals, exercise, no alcohol, gallons of water. And after such a regime, I reckon I deserve a treat. And I've got one. Now, I could have had a manicure or a scalp, shoulder and neck massage, but I prefer the hands-on approach. This really is the only way to travel.
I'm at a fairly modest 2,000 feet, and for the moment that's quite high enough. With me is flight instructor David Hoy. His mission, should he choose to accept it, is to get me flying solo before the end of the series.
When I'm here to learn how to fly, do I need to have had any specific qualifications to start with?
No, you've got to be at least 17 years old, and I think you're...
Yes, I passed that test.
Right. But apart from that, no. You don't need any O-levels, A-levels, GCSEs, nothing. You just need really the desire to want to learn.
Right.
Before you go solo, you've got to take what we call a Class 3 medical, which is a very simple medical taken by an aviation medical examiner. And he will just check to make sure there's nothing significantly wrong with you. There are very few things which would prevent you from holding a private pilot's license.
Right. I mean, I see you wear glasses, for example. I think many people would think, oh, well, if I wear glasses, I can't fly.
It's not a problem. Not a problem. As long as your eyesight can be corrected sufficient for their requirements, it's honestly not a problem.
Well, I'm pleased to say I passed the first test.
And that is yours, and you can now go solo.
The first flight of the day requires us to check the aircraft. And nothing for you to remember, because it's all in the checklist. Moving along now, the aileron. And you can see the control column moves to the left, and the other aileron has moved up. This is the stabilator. It's an all-flying, all-moving surface. You see, I move the control column back.
With the external checks complete, it's time to get into the cockpit of my very own Piper Cadet for the trial lesson. This is the first step for anyone wanting to learn how to fly. I want to get in and walk away at the same time. The idea of being able to fly this aircraft on my own seems impossible.
So I'm increasing the power, moving inwards and left rudder, and turning us towards the runway. Radio Golf Juliet Oscar ready for departure.
Golf Juliet Oscar, take off at your discretion, the surface wind light and variable.
Take off our discretion, Juliet Oscar. Okay, looks clear. Alright, so here we go then. Climbing up on the runway, my full power, throttle all the way forward, all the way up, that's it, all the way. Okay, power is good, airspeed's increasing. A little bit of right rudder, keep the hand on the throttle, and we're accelerating. Look at the airspeed. And 60 knots, gentle backward movement on the control column. Nice and gently move the control column back towards you. Move it back. There you go, keep the nose just below the horizon. Nose just below the horizon. Keep the wings level with the horizon.
Oh my God. That's the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life.
Very nice.
My first experience as a pilot was very difficult to describe. For once, I'm almost lost for words. Well, okay, I'm hooked. Let the lessons begin.
But up here at 40,000 feet, we're cocooned within the workhorse of the aviation world, the Boeing 747. Now, if you want to buy one of these things new, it'll cost you about £100 million. And then you'll have to shell out about £6,000 per hour to keep it crewed, maintained and fueled. Speaking of fuel, it can hold over 48,000 gallons. And on our flight from London to Los Angeles today, we'll be burning something in the region of 3,000 gallons per hour. Now, to put that into perspective, you probably use about 300 gallons a year in your car. This aircraft has a range of 8,000 miles, which means there's thankfully plenty in reserve if we have to divert or if we have to fly round and round in circles until we get a landing slot. Now, its towering presence at airports around the world means that the Jumbo is without doubt one of the supreme engineering achievements of this century.
jumbos are coming.
Boeing literally moved mountains to get the 747 off the ground in the late 60s. They took the top off the Everett Range near Seattle and created the largest building in the world to accommodate the piecing together of what's still the world's largest airliner. Preparations were ongoing across the Atlantic too, as rollout day grew nearer.
For many months, London Airport has been preparing for the day when the doors of the first jumbo jet opens and out come the equivalent of 10 double-decker busloads of people plus all their luggage.
When the 747 finally brought its first 381 passengers from New York to London in January 1970, aviation economists worried that it had arrived too big and too soon. As the crowds marvelled at this miracle of modern engineering, the question was, could the travel industry actually fill the jumbo? The concern seemed to be justified in the early days. The airlines couldn't sell all of the extra seats they suddenly had available, and the upper deck lounges were rather enterprisingly put to such uses as beauty parlours and casinos. But the spacious age, as it became known, was short-lived. Cheaper fares were introduced and bookings flooded in, and it wasn't long before the luxurious legroom in the economy class cabins disappeared to make way for 9 and even 10 abreast seating. By July of that first year, 1 million people had travelled on a jumbo jet. Boeing, its investment paid off, had completely revolutionised world travel. Today, the equivalent of 1/4 of the world's population has been carried by a 747. But perhaps none so remarkable as this 7-year-old, getting the star treatment along with his mum. The last time Andrew Langston travelled on a 747, he didn't pay his fare, and he didn't even have a passport.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome aboard this British Airways flight to Los Angeles. I'd also like to welcome aboard a very special passenger this evening, Andrew Langston, who was born on a BA flight 7 years ago and is celebrating his birthday with us here today on his way to Disneyland.
I was pregnant, but I wasn't expecting to have the baby for at least a few more weeks. I had a long flight ahead, 12-hour flight, but I'd had a backache towards the end of the flight, but then I'd been sitting still for 10 hours, so I expected that, and I felt very windy. And I've made several trips to the Louvre, didn't know what was the matter, and then on the last time when I did go, it was just a major panic set in because I just realised there and then that the baby was coming. And then it just went crazy. They called for a doctor on board, and the next thing I can remember is like 3 million people in the room laying on the floor, and that was it. The baby just popped out. Kevin was extremely shocked when he found out. He was on a flight home from Hong Kong as well, but he's arrived 2 hours after mine, so he was just given a note to say that I'd given birth and was in hospital. I remember his face as he walked through the hospital room, and we didn't really say anything. It was just complete shock, I think, all around. Andrew's never flown since the day he was born. This is his first trip anywhere. We're flying to Los Angeles Disneyland. I haven't even been on a plane since, so this is my first trip, and I can assure everyone I'm not pregnant.
If your heart is in your dream, no request is...
The jumbo continues to bring the pleasure and the benefits of world travel to millions of people. A real testament to a design which was only expected to last into the 80s. This aircraft, the 747-400 series, which you'll recognise by its elongated upstairs section here, really gave Boeing's fortunes a shot in the arm ever since it was launched in 1989. It had originally been planned for a full double-decker jumbo to be in service by 2001. But Boeing decided to wait a bit and test the market demand first of all. But what is coming is an even longer version of this aircraft, a stretched jumbo if you like, and it'll be able to carry up to 500 passengers. But whilst Boeing exercised caution in the race for supersized supremacy, their main rivals Airbus have forged ahead with a brilliant new program for 1999. Their A3XX is a state-of-the-art aircraft, and it'll be with us by 2003. That will be able to carry up to 600 passengers. However awesome the concept of a 600-passenger jet may be, to those in the remote regions of East Africa, one light single-engine aircraft has far more significance.
This is Malambo, the centre of the Maasai tribal region. It's also the centre of mass operations in this area. It's about an hour's flight out of Moshi and a very long way from anywhere. In the shimmering shadow of Kilimanjaro, the lone pilots of MAF, the Mission Aviation Fellowship, tend and fuel and fly tiny planes vast distances over the African plain. Nigel Riley is one of them. He once piloted giant 767s for BA. Now it's a second-hand six-seater Cessna for MAF. It was in the ramshackle market in Moshi that we picked up the most important passenger on our safari beyond the back of beyond. Sister Ndosi is a nurse, collecting provisions and medicines for our journey to tiny tribal villages which know no other help. In rural Tanzania, infrastructure consists of a few bumpy dirt roads regularly washed away in the rainy season, and runway congestion is these guys and their dogs. This, though, is just about the most sophisticated strip that Nigel ever sees. Flying here is hands-on, strictly low-tech, but high stakes for those he serves. The height of the terrain, more than 5,000 feet above sea level, plays its part too. With non-turbocharged engines, flying at altitude means losing almost a third of the power, making the job even more demanding.
The general principles of flying any aircraft are quite similar, but of course the modern jets are very automated. The 767 was particularly automated. You could land automatically in fog, and it had a flight management computer which could do an awful lot of things for you.
This little Cessna doesn't have any of those, does it?
It doesn't, but it's demanding in other ways. We fly into some very small airstrips in remote areas, and we have to do very short takeoffs, very short landings, sometimes on soft airstrips, sometimes sloping airstrips, occasionally with strong crosswinds. And so you have to be on your mettle, you know, you can't relax for a minute.
I can't say I was all that relaxed either, especially when we flew past Oldonyo Langai, the sacred mountain of the Maasai, a volcano which erupts dramatically from the gaunt plateau. You feel very small and insignificant in such a mighty place. You also feel every bump.
Sierra Papa. Landing Malambo.
Landing at Malambo, or any of the remote villages, is the most striking part. But at least you know the pilot really knows the strip. They personally pick the terrain, sometimes hiking cross-country to supervise the construction and to sight test the runway prior to the first landing. Before the start of every flight, the pilots say a little prayer, and I now know why. As we were bouncing up and down on the thermals, especially when we're flying incredibly close to the mountains, where my admiration for them soared, and so did the contents of my stomach. This is flying in the raw.
As you can see, Malambo's at 4,000 feet.
It's also flying with little external support. So when Nigel meets up with two other MAF pilots, they become a team, sharing vital information.
And when we come overhead the strip, I'll make the first inspection on the strip to check for animals and people. And
Are there generally a lot of people coming on to near the strip when we come, or?
Well, there'll be a lot of children initially. Then the other folk will come. It could take. It could be at least 30 or more. The local people make the decision as to whether they want an airstrip or not. In the case of the Maasai area, for example, we would have to get the permission of the local Maasai chief. He would discuss the matter with his elders, and then when one was put in, they were able to be reached with medicines, and the missionaries who were working in the area were using that airstrip, all for the benefit of the local people.
When we land at Olimale and Sister Ondosi begins working on the dreadful eye problems which are endemic to this region, I begin to realise just how vital aviation is here. Hopefully this baby will escape the blindness which afflicts so many Maasai, if MAF can keep flying regular missions. Nigel's mission now is to fly the sister on to the next village. In 2 long and arduous days flying, which could take weeks by jeep, they will cover 4 or 5 such dusty, distant places and their remarkable communities. Giving a lift to a couple of fully fledged Maasai warriors who've never flown before, well, that's all part of the service. We left Nigel, who would be staying here as a guest of the tribespeople, charting his next course. My time with the bush pilots of East Africa left a profound impression on me.
And that brings us to the end of our first air show. I promised you we'd be travelling to the ends of the earth for you, and here we all are. Until next week, goodbye.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Join us.